It's one of the most intimidating jobs in automotive, and car guys would sooner take an LS apart in their kitchen before they tackle this stuff. I'm, of course, talking about wiring. And listen guys, wiring and electrical can certainly be intimidating, but the basics and the fundamentals are really pretty simple. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys a masterclass in how to get good at wiring fast. Now guys, the very first thing that we have to address is pretty simple. It has to deal with this mess back here. This is part of a trailer brake that we're going to take off today. But the first thing that we got to fix is this ground wire right here. Now this is something that I noticed when we were doing my fuel pump. What we noticed is that there's no electrical connector, and you can see the wire pretty much just fell out. This is not exactly safe. It creates a huge failure point in the bolt, so we're going to get this routed up correctly. The very first thing that we're going to do is get this wire the correct length. You can see we've got all this extra slack that we really don't need. So I'm just kind of playing around. It looks like we can get away with about that much wire, kind of route it something like this. The very first thing that we're going to do, now that we know where we need our wire to be cut, go ahead and cut it. Then we're going to grab our wire pliers. We're going to match this to the gauge of the wire, which is really just kind of a guess and check, but it's probably a 14 gauge. And we're just going to snip a little bit off the end right here. Now that we've got some exposed wire, we're going to twist it up. And guys, I would love to be using a ring connector that would actually just fit around the bases of this bolt right here, but I don't have one that's big enough. So what we're going to do is put our heat shrink over it. You never want to forget that. And then we're going to be using this kind of terminal connector right here that the bolt's going to crimp on the frame. We're going to go ahead and fit that up to our freshly frayed wire. You want just a little bit of wiring sticking out the end right there. Then we're going to take our wire pliers. They've got a designation at the top. This is a yellow connector, so we're going to use the yellow portion of the crimper, and we're just going to cinch this down. Get that good and tight. Give it a pull. We're going to put our heat shrink over it. Again, you just want it to cover up all that exposed copper. And you can melt this a couple of different ways. You can use a lighter or you can use a hairdryer. We are going to opt for fire, and we're basically just going to kind of melt this on here. Now we have a really good wire set up, but we're not exactly ready to put this on the frame. So this is the bolt that we're going to, but we want to make sure that we have a really solid ground so that this wire doesn't get interrupted. So we're going to take this out. Then we're going to take our 60 grit sandpaper, and we're just going to scuff up this surface. We're going to snap our wire around the bolt, and we're going to run this in back to its location. And that is going to cinch the new wire that we created down to the frame, giving us a really solid ground. Now, we do, of course, want to check our work, so you guys stay here. I'm going to hit the brake lights because that's what this ground goes to. Alright, so now that we're absolute wiring experts, let's talk about what we even need to get jobs like this done. For starters, you're going to want to get a kit of electrical connectors. I think this was $10 on Amazon, and it comes with like 700 of these guys for different configurations that we're going to review today. Now, in order to make sure those connectors are sealed correctly, you're going to get a tub of heat shrink. These are just tubings that you melt on like we just saw. Again, another 10 bucks on Amazon. You're going to need a pair of wire pliers. These are cheap. These are easy to use, but you're going to make sure to grab those. You might need some black electrical tape, and if we're adding wiring like we will today, you need a spool of wire. This is 14 gauge, but my recommendation, generally 12 to 14 gauge is going to be good for whatever it is you're working on. We've got a lot more wiring to do. Let's flip the truck around and get it done. The next thing that we need to tackle is getting my horn working again, because the drivers here in Kansas don't know what they're doing. And when I bought this truck, it had a train horn. And sure, some people might think that was cool. I didn't, so I took it off. And what I learned is that when they wired that in, they took it out of the factory harness. So I've got the horn here. I got a new connector on the back end, and we basically need to connect these two wires into the factory harness. Now guys, horns are actually really simple. It's just two wires going into this. One wire has power 100% of the time, key on or key off, so you can just get in and hit your horn. The other wire is a ground. And when you press your horn button, that's going to complete the ground. The button acts as kind of an interrupter. When it completes the ground, the horn's going to sound. All right, right here is the OEM wire harness. Black is generally ground, and in this case, green would be the hot wire by process of elimination. But we're basically just going to get our strippers on here and fray off the ends of these. And now that we've got two ends here, we're going to get our connectors on. We're using these little pin connectors. One side kind of has an insert pin. We're just going to set this on here. And again, just do a little bit so that the wire is exposed on the other side. This is a red connector, so we're going to use the red setting on our crimpers. And we're just going to crimp the metal through the wires. Now, these crimp connectors kind of work like this. They plug in right there. We are going to use opposite ends for each wire, just in the off chance that we ever decided to, reinstall a train horn or do anything else. We want to be able to plug in this harness back to the way it would be. All right, let's go to the other side. On the horn side right here, this pigtail that I bought actually comes with wires already frayed, so we're just going to give that a little bit of a twist. And on a horn, polarity actually doesn't matter near as much, so I'm not super concerned with which one's the power and which one's the ground. We're going to put our heat shrink on first because you can't really get it on after. Then we're going to run this clip in here, make sure it is on all the way so we get a really good connection. And same thing, we're going to use the red setting on our wire pliers. Crimp that down, and then you see we can run the heat shrink over both of those units to really seal them together. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now we're ready to hook these up. Alright, now all we're going to do is just plug the connectors into the corresponding connecting pin, like this. Boom. Boom. And in order to keep these wires protected, we're going to slide our heat shrink over. Do these one at a time so you can really take the time to get them positioned correctly. And same thing, we're just going to melt this on here. Just like that, we've got two really solid wires connecting to our horn. Let's get this bolted back up and see if the thing works. Alright guys, the horns work. We're ready to drive in Kansas with all the other crappy drivers. Let's get to the rest of it. Alright, now comes the part of the video that I'm really not looking forward to. I'm taking off the trailer brake. Now, on Facebook builds, half the time you're going to spend correcting other people's work, and that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm taking this off for two reasons. A, I don't need a trailer brake. I'm not going to do a lot of hauling with this truck, so a trailer brake's unnecessary. The positioning is right on my knee when I brake, so I'm going to get out of the way. More importantly, the wiring here is crap. So I'm going to take this off. I hope I can pretty much just take this out, not really have to do a lot of correcting, but let's find out. Okay, so that really wasn't that bad. They only tapped into one wire with that nut that we just talked about, and that's really not that big a deal. We got it taped up, so we're good to go. I cut the wires on the other side, so we've got the unit separated, and now we're just going to pull those wires back through the firewall so we can make sure we have all points of disconnection. All right, we got all that crap wiring out of the way, and this is a pretty good indication of how poorly this truck has been taken care of and modified before I got my hands on it. But needless to say, we were rid of a trailer brake that wasn't exactly as cumbersome as I thought it was going to be, so that's a win. Y'all can enjoy this video of me talking because my mic decided to die, but basically all the crap wiring's gone and we're ready to get started on the reason we came here. We're putting a kill switch in this truck so nobody can get away with this old OBS. We're going to run this off the fuel pump wiring harness, specifically the prime wire. So imagine this red and black cable is the factory fuel pump harness, and this black wire is the prime wire that primes the fuel pump and turns it on. We're going to cut that black wire for the prime wire and basically run an interrupter switch into that wire. That way when we press the button, the fuel pump shouldn't have any power and the car shouldn't run. Is it going to work? Yeah, maybe. Let's find out. The first thing that we need to do is identify the correct wires. You're going to want to look up a fuel pump wiring diagram that you can just find on Google. You're going to identify the right wires. There's typically 3, maybe 4 going to the fuel pump. Find them on your harness. They're probably going to be in a loom, and you really want to make sure that you have the correct wires here. Now, guys, I did my research. I'm pretty confident we got the correct wire, but you do want to check early and often to prevent upstream issues. The easiest way to do that is just going to be to snip this wire. Now when we go to try to fire up the truck, it shouldn't work because the fuel pump shouldn't be getting any power. Let's reconnect our battery and test it out. And no surprise, the truck is not turning over because the fuel pump's not sending gas to the engine. That tells us that we got the right wire. Now to get this thing actually wired up, we are going to be using blade connectors, which I think are the best form of connection to be working with. And just like we did on our horn, we're going to be using inverse terminal connectors on these. That way, if for whatever reason we wanted to take our kill switch off or even just set this back to OEM, we could just plug them into each other and it'd be as if we were never there. Conversely, it's just going to create a stronger connection using these terminals. So we're going to wire it up just like this under the car. Let's do it. And it is the same process that we've been doing all day. We're going to strip the wires a little bit. We're going to apply our heat shrink. We're going to put our blade connector on there. We're going to crimp it on both sides. And as you can see, what I was talking about just a minute ago, if we wanted to, we could just clip these back together and it'd be like we were never here in the first place. Now that our wiring is ready to go, I mentioned we want to test this early and often. So I'm just going to use our little mock-up switch. I'm going to plug this in. And when we flip the switch one way or the other, the truck shouldn't start. And then we flip it back and the truck should start. Let's go ahead and test it out. And you guys can't hear because I don't know how to record. But basically, when we flipped it one way, the truck did fire up. And then we flipped the switch the other way and the truck wouldn't fire up, verifying that the kill switch is going to work. Now all we got to do is get the thing routed. We need to get this thing inside the cab of the truck so that you can mount it in your glove box or your door panel or under the seat or wherever your creative location is. So we're just going to take one end of the wire and run it through the firewall. There's typically always some spots behind the fuse boxes. You could drill a hole if you wanted to. But then once we get it in the cab, we're just going to pull enough wire so that we can get it routed to the location. Underneath the car, we need to connect our wires back to the wiring output that we made on the fuel pump harness. So we're just going to go ahead and pull this down, make sure that we have enough wire to get it done. All right, so my camera mount conveniently died, which gave me exactly enough time to hide my kill switch in the cabin from you guys. So the last thing that we need to do is loom up our wire to protect it from the elements and from heat. So we're just going to slide this on here, and then we're going to zip tie it to existing harnesses. So that way we can kind of keep it out of the way. Run this as far down as we can. All right, our wire is loomed in the engine bay and then underneath the car. We don't have any hanging wires. We cleaned up everything that we were into there and protected all those wires. Real quick, let's address a couple of things. Soldering is better than anything that I did today. But I told you guys at Slow Car HQ is about showing y'all how you can do stuff with common hand tools. Not everybody has a soldering iron. It's a little more intermediate. And doing this stuff with butt connectors is going to be perfectly okay as long as you protect and prepare like we saw in the video today. Second of all, did I just create a video and put it on the internet about how to steal my truck? Yes, but here's the thing. You don't know where I put the kill switch, and B, if someone really wants to steal your car, they're going to. It takes about 30 seconds to steal a car. The point of this is if they were to try to steal my car, they're going to get in, jam a screwdriver in the ignition cylinder, try to turn it, it's not going to start. Ideally, they're going to move on to the next vehicle. That's all we're really going for here. It's just another way to make sure that we keep this truck as protected as we can. All right, guys, a lot of wiring done today. I can confirm that when we flip this switch, the truck's not going to start. And then when we flip it back, just like that. This is Slow Car HQ. If you want to see more content just like this, see us restore this OBS as well as a few other cars, hit that subscribe and join the next big car channel on YouTube. That's it.